Hello friends, let's talk about power and authority. So this is a concept that I mentioned a while back in Options and Orders, and it deserves its own episode, so here we are. So, power is pretty straightforward. Power is the ability to affect a situation. This can be through brute force or coercion or direct action. You can have power because you have money, because you have respect, because you have knowledge, because you have physical strength, because you have people who listen to you. You can have power and not know it, and may never gain the power that you want, no matter how hard you try. Power is contextual, and it is limited. I can have lots of power at work because my coworkers respect me, and because I have the physical skills to do my job well, and because I have quite a bit of experience. But as soon as my boss rolls in, my power has probably become quite limited. More so if we disagree, since my power over my coworkers probably does not extend to them defying the boss. Similarly, I can have power over people I can convince by virtue of my experience, and none over people who are not convinced, though my experience remains the same. I can have power and not be able to use it, as is often the case with physical power. I've been tossing whole people around for quite some time now, but it's often not the best, most appropriate, most considerate, or most legal course of action, so I choose to be limited. The power still exists whether I use it or not, and I could choose to use it despite those restrictions. And if I do, then agents of the law have the power to enforce consequences upon me. Their power does not diminish mine. Power is taken, but authority is given. Authority is the recognition of power. It often has physical trappings, things like power ties, police badges, visible muscles, expensive clothing, or even other people like fans, bodyguards, hangers-on, or sycophants. Where power is a state, an immutable fact, authority is a relationship between two agents. Many ordinary relationships have an authority element to them, whether that's knowing that one partner has a good sense of direction, so when they tell you that you missed a turn, they probably know what they're talking about. Or when you call your sibling for computer advice. Or that friend who knows everything about local sports, so you bring them with you to bar trivia because that's knowledge that you don't have. The thing that makes their prowess authority is the fact that you recognize that ability in them and concede to it. If you, one day, were like, no, you know what, you're always telling me where to turn, and I know perfectly well where your aunt lives, so just let me drive, then they no longer have that authority. Even if you're wrong and you took a wrong turn and ended up parked at a 7-Eleven while you look up directions and your partner smugs at you from the passenger seat, you still have rejected their authority, and so they have none. But they do still know how to get to where you're trying to be, so they keep their power. I hope this clarifies the difference for you, because now we can get into why this matters. Because up to now, it's interesting to talk about, to me, but not terribly applicable, so we're going to cover two more things. First, how to get power and/or authority, and second, how to use power and/or authority. Getting power is pretty straightforward. Identify what kind of power you want, increase your ability in that area. If you want the power to manage conversations, then you might educate yourself on conversational styles, team management strategies, leadership, or de-escalation. If you want physical power, then you might go to the gym or start taking jiu-jitsu classes or yoga, depending on what you want to be able to do. This is internal goal setting, so I can't help you much here. Understand that the acquisition of power happens outside of a de-escalation context, and while that power may be useful, you can't change how much power you have, or the escalated person has, once you've engaged. Accumulating authority requires more care and more time, and it must be done fresh with every person. Sometimes another person can help you out by verifying your authority. Oh, is Marie at the coffee stand today? You're in luck. She makes the best lattes. But unless you have a pre-existing relationship with someone, they have no reason to grant you authority. This is the reason that I start every class with how long I've been teaching the material and what I do for work. That way, people who are predisposed to trust experience are already giving me authority, so I can be assured that they're taking what I have to say seriously. People who don't care still have some information about my perspective and can adjust their opinion as we proceed. And people who are inclined to challenge authority now know where to aim their questions to get the biggest reaction. Or if I do my job right, their questions tell me about their existing misconceptions, and I can correct them, which reinforces my authority with the rest of the class. Seriously, managing a large class is an exercise in de-escalation every time. Even if they like you, they still don't want to be there. Half of them think the class is a waste of time, and you have to be entertaining enough to keep their attention while keeping the whole thing on schedule, managing challengers, and hitting all of the informational points. It's a huge amount of work to manage any number of people, and if you can establish some authority initially, then you can build on that. So, introduce yourself and frame yourself as someone who is there to provide something. Information, attention, care, safety, knowledge, whatever. You are there to provide. This is part of teaming as well. Really got to do that episode about teaming. You can reinforce your authority by sharing the benefits of that authority. When I ask my coworker to leave the room because he, and it is, in my anecdotal experience, always a he's making the situation worse, then, in addition to improving the de-escalation environment, I'm doing a little flex in front of the escalated person. I'm saying, I'm in charge here, and I'm also showing it by demonstrating that when I speak, this other random person will listen to me. Once the escalated person recognizes that authority, then continuing to demonstrate it will become grating and have the opposite effect, but done just once, that flex can cement your authority with the escalated person. I prefer to view authority as a trust relationship rather than a power relationship because I find that I have a lot more success that way, and once it's established, authority is, in my opinion, best used to strengthen that trust. So, if I'm de-escalating a friend of mine who just had a bad first date and wants to vent but has strayed into personal attacks against the other person, which is when that venting became not okay, then I need to recognize that I'm not a great authority on dates or dating. I've been on like one date ever and we got burritos and watched anime and 4 years later we got married. So the chances that I'm going to establish some kind of authority relationship with my friend on this subject is pretty low. But I do know an awful lot about rejection and what that feels like. So that's something we can talk about. And that's my window into building that authority relationship. First, by sympathizing with the driving emotion, probably wounded pride in this situation, covered with a thick blanket of anger. And then by engaging on my chosen terms, which is to say by ignoring the anger and talking about the hurt. And trying to tie the escalated person's present behavior to their emotions of having been hurt while deliberately redirecting any anger towards the other person with a, hey, forget about them. Validate the emotion. You gotta take care of you. Redirect inwards. And if you're never gonna see them again, prompt a choice, then you never have to worry about them. Positive consequence. And you can take care of yourself. Second beat consequence. That feels like you should have a bro at the end of it. You'll know you've got an authority relationship on the subject when they agree with you. Say something like, you know what? You're right. Now, for using power and authority. Authority in de-escalation, and possibly other situations, is best used to inform and to guide. When I'm teaching de-escalation and someone closes the gap between me and them, escalating the situation, then because I've established an authority relationship, I can say, what just happened here? Do you think that's a good idea? And I can prompt them to consider their choices more carefully. Questions of content can be really good for this. One day, I gotta do an episode on the different kinds of questions. If there is an actual answer to a question and the answer contextualizes their opinion, then that gives you something solid to engage with, and you can exert authority that way. So, if my friend is trying to tell me that burger place B is better than my favorite burger place A, then I can ask a question like, okay, but are they basic burgers or are they kind of bougie? This is a question that has an answer, and they probably know what it is. So when they say, it's basic burger staples, I think their bougiest add-on is like avocado, no caramelized onion or aioli or chutney. Then I can exert my authority as someone with an informed interest in this topic and say something like, well, I like that bougie shit, so while I'm sure herpes is fantastic, the stack will always hold a special place in my heart. Unless, of course, having this kind of argument is still fun for you, in which case you don't want to exert authority. Instead, you want to do the opposite of de-escalate and directly challenge their opinion with something like, psh, no way, I mean, who uses crinkle fries? What is this, Ore-Ida? I may have gotten distracted here. Refocus. Using authority is pretty simple as long as you keep your pride out of it. And remember the number one rule of de-escalation, it is not about you. Using power is also extremely simple since at its core, power is a very simple concept. In a de-escalation situation, ask yourself what your goal is when you want to exert power. Are you trying to maintain control, demonstrate your perceived place in the hierarchy, create fear, manufacture respect, or force compliance? Well, that's you being a bully, and you may want to cut that out. On the other hand, using your power to contain physically violent behavior or to enforce consequences previously set or to remove yourself or someone else from a dangerous situation is within the goals of de-escalation and may be appropriate in certain circumstances. What do you think? Where do you draw the line between power and authority? Is it possible to use power ethically? Put your stories, additions, or corrections in the comments. Be smart, stay safe. Bye. What is making that noise? God, I hope it's outside.